to Pardon Our Honesty, where we have fabulous guests today because we're going to deep dive into a very interesting topic. So today we have Bridget Santiago joining us and Miss Rain Blackcloud, love her name, and we are going to be deep diving into culture, stereotype, and biases, y'all. So let's get into it. Megan, this is your train where you are running it, okay?
All right, so we're going to start with Rain, and we're going to go down the line, and we're just going to tell you, well, you already know our names, but our names and our ethnic background, and then we will jump into questions. So Rain, you get to go first.
Okay, so what am I?
So your name and what are you? What are you made up of?
Sugar and spice and everything.
Oh, yes, I love it.
My name is Rain Blackcloud. I am Lakota Sioux, Dakota Sioux on my father's side, Muskogee Creek on my mother's side. So Native American.
All right.
That was so eloquent.
I know, it sounds beautiful.
I'm Megan, and I am Irish, German, completely white American.
Mixed.
I mean, just saying, like, I don't have any other culture. So we're talking about different races and cultures. I'm not mixed. I'm Irish, German, all that good stuff.
Okay. I'm Tiffany, and I am all the way black. Just black.
Just black.
Just black. I'm sure there's some mixed up stuff in there. I have no idea what it is, but I identify as black.
So my name is Bridget Santiago, and both of my parents are ethnically mixed, but my mom is white. She's predominantly Irish, Scottish, German, and a few other things thrown in there. And my dad, his family comes from Puerto Rico, so white and black.
Okay.
All right.
So we got a good little mix.
Yes,
today.
we do.
So we're going to start with Bridget. And the first question that we're all going to kind of go through is things that we commonly hear as a stereotype about your culture. So I would probably lean towards your Puerto Rican side or that you're mixed even. What is something that you hear about your culture that people tend to stereotype once you say you're Puerto Rican?
Once I say I'm Puerto Rican, especially if people find out I'm Puerto Rican and Irish, then obviously I must have like a horrible temper. I'm a huge drinker, loud, which is a little bit true, but yeah.
So do you find those amongst your family or your culture? Do you find those stereotypes accurate?
I mean, stereotypes have to be like a little bit accurate or they wouldn't be a lasting stereotype. They wouldn't stick. So yeah, there's definitely loud alcoholics in my family.
Yeah.
But that's not all we are. So.
Right. Right. That's a good way to put it. Tiffany?
What do I say about black people? We're lazy and we're always late. We're not intelligent. We are not ambitious. Like, we don't have that drive to go after, things like success and education, stuff like that. While I will say I fall into, I'm going to be late. Don't look for me to be on time.
I was just going to say, now, do you find any of those to be true?
Some of them are true. The late, I think, is just culturally we've accepted that, hey, if you're having a barbecue, you understand. Don't show up to the barbecue at 5 o'clock because I'm not going to be ready. I'm going to probably still be cooking and getting stuff ready. Ambitious, I would say, no, I don't believe that is a stereotype that fits our culture. Or we're uneducated and lazy because a lot of American inventions and the prosperity of this country has fallen on, like Bridget's culture's back, my culture's back, and Rain's culture's back. So it's just, like Bridget said, some of those things are true, but are we just lumping everybody into that? This is what was true for these few people that I knew that were from this culture, and now everybody is like that.
Go ahead, Bridget.
I was going to say, for that time thing, I think culturally we have different understandings around time too.
So like you understand in your culture when you say 5, you really mean 6.
Exactly.
But we other cultures may be like, what the heck? You said 5. It's 5:02. Why aren't you here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like an expectation that
And
just because I told
understanding.
you 5.
Yeah.
You don't have to show up at 5.
You don't have to
Please
show up at 5.
Yeah.
Please don't show up at 5.
Yeah, because
Like, I'm still be cleaning.
Yeah.
There's still gonna be food in the oven. Like, don't show up at 5.
That's funny. I would say some stereotypes probably for my culture would be we're not accepting of change or accepting of other cultures. That we are very like, you're going to be early with your ticket, even though you have a seat, fighting people to be the first in line, even though you already have a seat. Doesn't matter if you get there early or late. Maybe a lack of, like, I think a stereotype is like, honestly, I feel like most people think white culture is just racist in general. I think they say, oh, they're racist, or they don't accept different cultures, or they don't whatever. And people just blanket that and think because they've had bad experiences or because the way the world was years and years and years ago, that it's still the same way and they look at you and see you that way. And I think I am sure that still exists for sure. But I would say the same thing as you said earlier. We're more than that, and it's not a blanket. There are people, I think, in every culture that fits their stereotype, but it's not the whole culture as a whole. And people, I feel like, don't look past that and only focus on that. Rain?
I think a huge stereotype is that we just don't exist anymore. So I probably can ask you 3 ladies right now what a stereotype of Indian is, and you wouldn't really know an answer.
I really don't know an answer.
Yeah.
When Megan told me that you were going to join us for this conversation, we talked about that question, and I said, well, I feel like they would just, you cross them, they'll scalp your ass. That was the only
Tiffany's
thing
answer.
that came to me, and I'm sure that's horrible and it's wrong, but
So stereotype is you'll get scalped, and that probably stereotype was back from the 1400s.
Yeah.
So again, everyone thinks that there are no Indians left. So I think that's one of the biggest stereotypes. If you're kind of getting down to it a little bit more, everyone, they think they know what Indian looks like. They're like, oh, you don't look Indian. Well, how do you know? You've only been kind of spoon-fed what the movies kind of show you. So you really don't know. And there's thousands of tribes here. So I think that's probably a big one. And then boil it down a little bit more, it would be alcoholism, which that, drunk Indian, they're just a drunk Indian. A lot of people don't know that stereotype because they're really ignorant to where they are. Yeah. So when you're looking into bigger tribal areas, you do see that stereotype quite often, that they're just a bunch of drunk Indians. And there are, absolutely, because they've been fed that. So, and that's where kind of that stereotype comes from. But the biggest one is you just don't have any because we don't exist.
Yeah, but I also would say that because I've lived in North Carolina and Arizona and other places where they have the reservations and you all are allowed to have casinos, I've always also thought that you all were rich and that you all benefit from those establishments, but clearly that's not always true.
So let me ask you, so for your culture, I guess your culture, so I think there's 2 different, okay, and if this all comes out wrong, hopefully, whatever, God forgive me. So your culture in your mind kind of feels like it's been eliminated, right? Like, but like we don't have stereotypes because people think you're not here, and we don't. So with that being said, do you have like a recourse in your mind, or does your culture think white, black, whatever is against the Indian culture, or because so like where I'm going with this is, and then you can go from there. Like, I feel like the African American culture, there was slavery and horrible things that were, we all know. And it's like, some people can still look at me and blame me for that when I was like, I had nothing to do with that shit. I'm trying to change my child's view, and I'm trying to change the next generation. But they hold on to that. Do you have the same thing in your culture? Do you hold on looking at like the white man, like they...
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. But not because it's because it's not erased in my culture. They still whitewash everything up until, when I was in high school. I sat, there and listened to what they were feeding the students about history, and it has nothing to do with, you know, they give Germany a hard time for erasing the Holocaust, but we do the same thing in the United States, teaching children where they are. Foreigners come here and they, you know, get their, you know, their citizenship, and there's no questions of where you're actually at. You know, whose land was this? Whose land is this? You know, another, you know, thing is people think that Native Americans were conquered, and you don't make agreements with conquered people, and that's why you have treaty rights. And I'll bring it back to what Tiffany says about casinos. You know, they think that, oh, well, Indians are allowed to have casinos and this, and they're rich and they get this and that, and it's not accurate. You know, we have a lot of historical trauma. A lot of tribes have given up treaty rights to have those casinos on their land. A lot of people don't realize they're taxed immensely to have those casinos. It's a trickle-down thing where they set up healthcare for their elders, childcare for their children, schooling for their, you know, graduates, and then if there's any stipend left over, that gets divided amongst the tribes. So there isn't, I don't get a paycheck for being Indian, so that's not, you know, that's another thing people think when they're driving through those places. A lot of other people also think, oh, well, they have lands, they have reservations. Those are actually old prison camps. So that commodities, when I was growing up, we got, you know, holy cheese and, you know, white flour and you know, everything that was really bad for you. So we have a high, you know, average Native American death rate is 48 years old.
Wow. I'm learning a lot from you today.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
But that's, like you're saying, that's not talked about, period. And I think I am only aware of, you know, the Native Americans within our local area, not your tribe specifically, but the Lumbee tribe, is because of the work, the volunteer work that I do down there. And my foundation has a program specific for the Native American children. But yeah, I've driven by there, and it doesn't look like it's plush and it's the best thing since sliced bread.
I was gonna say, it's because it's a prison camp. The Lumbees, when I first, because the Native American Indian community is very small, when I first was moving here, it was a lot of, well, the Lumbees weren't Indian, they're black, they're pretending to be Indian. And so
because they only got their tribal cards like in the last decade.
Well,
or so,
I think I don't even know if they're federally recognized, which, you know, is silly anyways in the first place. And that's a whole nother situation. But, you know, so there's even that amongst natives themselves. Well, you're not Indian, because that's kind of what has been bred. You know, I have a tribal ID card that says I'm registered like I'm a dog. I'm this, here's my tribal card. So I can't remember what I was talking about now.
You'll get there again, I'm sure.
Anyways, yeah, so the Lumbees, as far as that goes, but a lot of people, like you were saying, with blacks and slavery or whatnot, you hear about black slavery, but you never hear about the natives that helped them escape slavery. It's a complete whitewash of any history that's accurate, that includes any native involvement at all.
So why do you feel that your culture still looks at any person of the opposite race and feels like they're against them immediately? Like, why I feel like as we go generation and generation, it should get better, but I don't know that that's necessarily happening. Do you think it's because hate's breeding hate? Do you think it's because it's a media thing? What is your perspective?
I think it's twofold. I think absolutely it is a media thing, but then I think also you still have people out there perpetrating the hate. And so how can I heal from my trauma if I'm continuing to experience it, where I might not be experiencing it physically at the moment, but I'm watching it. I'm watching a man cry for his life. I'm watching this person in a traffic stop get killed because the person said, I'm afraid for my life. Or in my own personal experience, I was in a state, we purchased a car in that state. We didn't have a tag for it. So I was following my husband back to where we live, and he got pulled over. I stopped right behind the car, and behind the police officer's car, and I got a gun drawn on me, telling me I needed to move. And so that was like, well, shit, if I'm a person that's serving in the military, get a damn gun drawn on me, what is the average person gonna feel or think? Like, I should be safe with the police where I'm doing everything right and serving my country. And this dude literally, if I had to move, I know he would have shot me. I know. So that trauma of continuing to experience it or see it or having to teach my children, look, if you're in this situation, you need to do this, this, and this so that you come home safely. That's re-traumatization every day.
Yeah. And I do agree that you, like, I was talking all this stuff went on. I never had to tell my dog. I mean, I always tell her, obey, don't fight, don't argue, no matter. I've always taught her that. Follow the adult rules as long as it's not physically harming you, obviously. But I never realized the extent of some people, especially with boys, Black sons have to explain certain things. And that's obviously unfortunate. But let me, hold on, I'm gonna switch gears just for a little bit for Bridget. So Bridget, because
Yeah.
you're mixed culturally, do people have do you get, for lack of a better word, do you get shit for that? So like Nick's mixed and he gets shit because he's not black or white enough, he's not white enough, he's not whatever enough. People from one culture will push the other. And do you get that in your culture? If you're with your like Puerto Rican family, is it because you're mixed or does it not?
Some, I would say that I get it more when, like, I'm just not white enough to be white. And so that is an issue more in white communities than it has ever been in Hispanic or Black communities. So much less from
Other
Black or Hispanic.
I think
groups.
that exists in all cultures, not necessarily Caucasian cultures, because like Rain was saying,
That you don't
with
want,
the Lumbee tribe, are you really Native American? Or, if you're from this tribe, well, you might not be Native American enough. And for Black culture, depending on your skin tone, if you're lighter, then you're better than the people that are darker in our culture. We call it colorism. And same for you.
Colorism is
it's real. It's in most cultures there is a form of colorism where if you're a little bit different from the other one, you're better, and if you're not, then you're just at the bottom of the barrel.
But do you think that people? So in every culture, I think across the board, there's a shitty group, and then there's good. There are probably drunk people, and there's probably people who will kill you for walking in their yard, and there's probably people who, every culture, I feel like there's a group of people in every culture that does the wrong things, is against the wrong people, and all of that good stuff. But do you think people assume that first before they assume the latter? Like,
I think they do, because you both mentioned the media earlier, right? Yes. The media is speaking from a voice that is your average white person. The media, unless it's like a specific channel, the media is speaking from a voice of whiteness. And whether that's, your TV anchor is white or Black or whatever, I still think that the media as a whole is speaking from a white voice. And so they look at those communities and those situations through that lens. And so it's easier to say that, Indians are drunk and Black people are lazy and, whatever.
See, and I look at it as
coming from.
I think they do it to stir the hate. Because, we had a text amongst our group not too long ago about the people who were shot in the driveway. And the only person they mentioned race in the headline was a Black man shot in white person's yard. Literally those words. When that same week, there was a mixed girl, there was 2 white girls that were shot in somebody's yard for backing up in the wrong yard, another one in basketball, all this other stuff happened in 1 week. But in the headline, it only said Black man or Black girl or Black man shot by a white man at door. And yes, it happens. We know that. But why does the media make it that? None of the other races were mentioned except that.
It's always because they're always pushing an agenda. Yeah. So, the more they get stirred up, the more it's political, the more they have, control over how people respond to certain things. So, people think that, that's not the case. But, it totally is. Every single time across the board, it's always the case. I look at it from a different point of view because I just have been raised to question authority from day one. And that's just because everything I've ever been taught from something has always been not right.
Yeah.
So to question, people just don't realize how integrated it is in societies, Black communities, Indian communities, brown communities in general, red communities, how little things are implemented and they have lasting effects to the communities. Now you can say, hey, this person got shot and they were Black, and Black communities, they're violent, but at some point there was a seed that was planted there and now it's bloomed. And that's the same thing in tribal culture. There's this, there's a tribe in Washington that's, done very well for themselves, and we'll have non-Indians drive through and be like, look how dirty these people are. And you don't understand that they live in a prison camp. They were given very little all their whole lives. And then all of a sudden they have money. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So what do they spend it on? Probably gambling, drinking, whatever, clothes, because, that's what they think is cool. There's no, you don't know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So
there was no education.
Exactly. So you have, certain individuals in that community that are able to break free and, rise above that, trauma that's been implemented, but everything is planted as a seed that grows.
So where does change take place? So like we talk about that. Now, obviously, I would say based on some of the things Rain said and everybody knows, our education system leaves out a lot of other cultural history that affects our daily lives, right? So that would be one, but obviously we can't affect them right now, changing the whole education system. So within yourself, like what is something, because I'll be honest, I see people, I have all instant, when I meet people for the first, or see people, I have a stereotype at first. It could be a girl who's half naked, and in my head, I'm like, what the heck is she? But then I was like, you know what? Go speak to her, see if you know what I mean? Like, you instantly have that. I can be, in no offense to anybody, but we went to an Airbnb one time, it was a bunch of skinheads on the street, and we have a mixed car family, and we were like, oh my gosh, should we even pull in this driveway? Because these are obvious, and they were the nicest. Like, I don't know if they were really truly, I don't know.
They were the nicest.
But I judged them. I don't know if they were really skinheads. I don't know if they were really skinheads. But right. But they appeared in like the way they dressed, the way that initial stereotype, right? But then we talked to them, and I don't know, you're maybe right. Maybe they had lice and shaved their heads. I don't know. But like, how do we all, I feel like most of us at first have a thought, and then you have to work past that thought and say, well, let me know this person for myself, or judge for myself. But I feel like if you walk in the room and say, oh, all these dang whatever, everybody follows suit and they don't even know what they're following. So like, how do you start changing that?
Well, I think Bridget and I experienced some of that. Okay, yes, everybody has biases because you all grew up in a culture, you all grew up in a community that kind of taught us, for me, this is how you treat white people, because if you don't treat them like this, they'll hurt you or do something bad to you. But us both being in the military, you didn't have a choice but to kind of deal with your biases. If you wanted to keep them, you better hide them because it wasn't tolerated. So I think recognizing that all of us has biases, identifying them, and then giving space to be open to meet people, get to know them where they are, work with them, interact with them to truly understand, was what I was taught about this culture accurate, or was it just, okay, that's all they knew, so they passed it to me?
But I feel like people have to be open to that.
Hey guys, it's Tiffany, and we definitely want to thank you for joining us on this thought-provoking conversation about cultures and biases in part 1 of our podcast. We've only begun to scratch the surface of this amazing topic, and we invite you to join us again for part 2, where we'll go even deeper into the understandings and questions that we have about one another and our different cultures. We can't wait to have you back, so make sure you tune in next Thursday for part 2. And until then, bye guys.